Okay. Who was leader for tonight? Do you guys know?
We didn't talk about that one. Last week we had issues with, yeah, getting.
I told JT I would do it because we were the only two left in the call by the end of the night.
Okay.
So I'm fine doing it. Mostly just reading off of iLearn anyway, what we're supposed to talk about.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to start without JT?
I haven't heard anything from him. Should we text him? He says he did text and said it's at 10, you know. So he knew it was going to happen tonight.
His is the 562 number, correct?
Not sure.
I'm just going to put it in the group message.
Yeah, his is the 562 number. Yeah.
Okay, I'm texting him right now.
Okay.
He's here now, so we're good.
Oh, perfect.
Great. Okay, good.
Yes.
We're all
You have it recording, Suzanne?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, well.
I had a hard time figuring out how to do them, so I'm glad Suzanne is back.
Yeah, sorry about last week. It was a long week.
Oh, I'm sure.
Hey, Zach, if you want to start.
Okay, yeah, I was just pulling up the document. Did everyone get a chance to read the little case?
Yes, I did.
Jack DaCosta.
The DaCosta, the last one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the first, I guess, discussion point is wants us to talk about Jack's options after kind of overhearing the phone call and talking to the people. What do we think his options are?
I kind of felt like his options were limited. Like, once he called the council for their company and she told him, like, this is what you're mandated, basically. Like, he's kind of required to do it. I kind of thought of, there's a company that my mom works for, and the CEO of the company is the stake president, but he's a health professional. So when they called him as the stake president, he told the guy who called him, like, I'm mandated by the state to, like, report certain things, and so if somebody comes in and tells me something like child abuse, I'm gonna have to, like, legally I have to do it, you know, like, just so you know, I hope that's okay, and that normally doesn't fly. And so I kind of, like, thought of that as I read this case. Like, once she told him you're mandated to do it, basically, like, he kind of was limited. He had to do it at that point. Legally, that's what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's true. Anyone else think he doesn't have to say anything?
In the military, if you know something and if you don't say anything, you could be held responsible and you could be thrown out. You can go to prison. So if you know something, you're required to say something and to do something. And I don't think it's the same in civilian life.
You say you don't think it's the same, or you do think it's the same?
I don't, because I think a lot of times people just either ignore it or think that it's too much and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there should be something protecting him because what if he says something and now that well, I guess we're not there yet, but when he approached the girl, now she knows and she could say who told on him, like now his job's at risk. So it's just kind of like they're all at this, like, I don't know. And then even if, let's say, like the boss does get, prosecuted, whatever, fired, every other manager there is going to be alarmed for the fact that he's the rat and he did this and he did that. So it kind of limits his options as far as.
But don't you think to like some degree as like human beings, whether or not we like it, we're required to like help somebody else out?
Well, definitely, I would say that. And like even in the honor code, there's like the biggest part of it that isn't followed is that people are supposed to encourage others and like report others.
Everybody's got their mics off. Is that helping?
Yeah, I keep turning them off so there's no back feed, and I think that's what the problem is with all of our mics being on.
Were you done, JT?
I just won't talk.
That's
pretty bad.
Does anyone think that because he doesn't necessarily know who she was referring to and what he heard, that he doesn't have as much of an obligation to say anything?
No, I think he still has an obligation. I mean, it looked like it was maybe a smaller company, and so I'm pretty sure he could figure out who the boss was. And so I don't know. I know I've been in a position where I had a coworker. There was just two of us. I worked in an apartment complex, and I was one of the leasing agents. The other leasing agent was, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly why, but she told me that she was going to make up false accusations about the boss because she wanted a settlement. And I was like, what? So, I went home and talked with my husband, and thankfully he knew the boss too, so I didn't know what to do, so we called him and talked to him and told him, and she ended up getting fired because of it. But it was hard to know whether or not to say anything.
Yeah.
I think personally, if you know someone's getting hurt, you have an obligation to say, what can I do? How can I help you? If you ignore it, then it just continues and it doesn't get better. At least identifying it, you are actually saying, okay, this is important. Let's get this resolved. How can I help you?
Well, and I thought I'll just interject really fast. I thought it was interesting, like as you read, like what the counsel had to say back. She said basically, like if they cross-examine you, and kind of like what you were saying, Leonard, like if he were to go to court and they were to say, did you know anything about this? He would have been held accountable too because he knew and he kind of turned a blind eye to it. Like I think like the whole time I read the case, I thought of that saying like ignorance is bliss, and I feel like that's not the case. Like ignorance isn't bliss. It doesn't help anybody, and it just like kind of puts you in like a false sense of reality. And I think that that's not what we should do, especially in like settings like this, in a situation like this, to just turn a blind eye. It just makes you just as equally as guilty or accountable for what was happening.
Yeah, Leonard, I agree with you about how you need to, if you see someone's hurting, you need to talk to her. Something that he did do good, I thought, was he brought her into his office and talked to her, and she was very adamant that he didn't do anything. So how do you think he performs his obligation to say something but also respects her and her fears of her husband and possibly losing her job and wanting to get transferred, because that's a pretty delicate line he has to try and find there.
Extremely delicate, because you're trying to protect her, you're trying to protect yourself from legal situations, and you're trying to do the right thing. That is a lot on the plate. And if somebody can master that well, you should be the boss. Because I think everybody has they bring their differences to the table, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And there's a lot of times people are just afraid. They're chicken. They won't say anything. They won't do anything. And that's the biggest problem is if nothing's done or if nothing's said, then it continues, and it shouldn't happen.
So the next kind of thing it wanted us to talk about was, it seems like we're kind of all in agreement that he should say something and that he's like mandated to talk to the EEO office, but it wants us to discuss what would you specifically tell them, because you didn't hear her say who it was other than that it was her boss, and you haven't seen anything, so like how would you explain it to them, and what could you say?
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. I'm not quite sure, but I wonder if he has a chance to find out what like, because I don't think she knows what her rights are and what can happen. You know, if she were to go forward with the evidence and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a chance of her losing her work, and I don't know what's going to happen with her husband, but I mean, I don't know if she's aware of the laws and rights, you know, for herself, because, you know, she's kind of, I don't know, she just sound like she's not aware, you know, she knows what's going on, but she doesn't know what to do with it either. She doesn't like it, but you know, she doesn't. I don't know what exactly how to put it, but I wonder if she knows her rights and you know what kind of help she can get, that she will be more willing to, you know, kind of go forward with solving this or having them investigate and things like that. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I think the company should have had some sort of classes already in session teaching them about sexual harassment and what do you do, and you know, all of them could have benefited from that because none of them quite know what to do. And if the company had policies and said, you know, this is what's happening, then these are the consequences, and you know, just I don't know, some different classes should have probably been happening. Education, I guess.
Yeah, you're right, Suzanne. It doesn't seem like this small company really, we don't really know how small it is, but it doesn't seem like they have much of a sexual harassment policy in place, because it doesn't seem like she knows her rights, and obviously this guy we're talking about, he doesn't know what his role is as a manager, and he kind of just trying to figure out what he needed to do, he put himself in a harder spot because now he's obligated to report it. That kind of leads us into the next part. Is it wants us to kind of discuss and create a sexual harassment policy for this company. And I was thinking it could kind of work. It could kind of work for both this and our Doohickey assignment, because I think one of the issues with that company was that the lady was being sexually harassed by a few of her coworkers. So if we can we can kind of come up with a good policy for this company, we might be able to use it in our paper as well. So
you're saying kill two birds with one stone? I like this
exactly
idea.
what I'm saying.
I like it.
So I don't know how exactly we want to lay this out. This is also this policy is the thing that I'm supposed to write up and include for our discussion leader assignment. So, like, does anyone have any ideas of how we could write up what, like, the policy could be for, I guess, the person who's being harassed, the person who's doing the harassment, any bystanders?
Maybe do a point of view for all three of those. They could each have their own little paragraph or maybe little bulletin points. Like I was just thinking, all the elementary schools, I'm sure the middle school and high schools, but you know they have a no touch. It's common. You would think common sense, but I mean in here it said that he's put his hand in her shirt and was like, "Don't scream, because I'll deny it all." I mean, hello, that's not right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that could be one of them is no touch.
Okay.
Yeah, in one of the readings it talked about like how the one boss like gives back rubs to his employee. That was I don't know, and like obviously in that scenario that was actually on the quiz. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about the quiz, but it may have possibly been on the quiz where they asked like, does why wasn't it that anyway. So for whatever reason it wasn't sexual harassment, and and that was touching. So I do think that no touching is a simple policy, just because it prevents that. So for me, that's a bizarre concept to like give a massage to one of your employees, whether you're her boss or not, which is probably just because I was raised in this school system that has this no touch policy. So I concur, is what I'm saying.
Well, I tell you what, after working a 12-hour shift and your coworker comes up and rubs your shoulders, egging you on, continue on, not doing it alone, but in the group setting, I have done that when I've gone up to someone, they've asked for a shoulder rub, and if it's in the group setting, if it's out there in front of people, that's cool. But if it's by yourself, I won't do that. And the reason why is, I tell you, after 12 hours, you need help. But that's a whole different scenario compared to what this is specifically saying. I want to be able to say people need to be able to report it, and either anonymously, like you've seen something, you've said something, and so that there's no reprisals. And I'm trying to figure out a way of saying it. If you see it, if you know about it, say something about it. Something like a short blob of that's what it's not accepted. It shouldn't happen. Let's resolve it.
Yeah. So what I took from that is you need to be able to report these things anonymously so that you are putting yourself in an awkward situation with the people involved, but the necessary help can still happen.
And if the person is telling you, no, don't say anything, don't do anything, well, that's not going to help them. It's not going to help you. The situation needs to be stopped. And so something needs to be said, something needs to be done, and it has to be in a non-threatening way to get it done.
I think that we need to stop the problem before it happens because at this point, this girl's, probably not going to continue working there in the capacity that she's in, and that guy can't get away with doing it either. I mean, because you can't just have them sit in timeout and then apologize to each other at this point because there'll be hurt feelings, there'll be... So how do we stop it from getting to that point? And I think that's where education comes in so that you know what to do when you have, like, policies in force. But even where I was hired, they didn't give us like a sexual harassment like training day. They just like read it over. They're like, okay, this is simple. Everybody knows this. Don't touch each other. Don't say, whatever things to each other. And just go from there. And you pretty much know what you should and shouldn't do in a workplace.
I think it's important to lay like the foundation or have the certain rules set, and it's there like before. I mean, when they get hired, so everybody's on the same page and they have like policies. They know the policies. That way, I mean, because if you don't know it, then it's not. If you don't like do it for every one of them that gets hired, then everybody's not on the same page. You know what I mean? If it's there, but if it's not talked about, then not everybody would know it. So if you're expected to know the rules or expectation and policies and stuff when you get hired, then I think it can prevent a lot of the things that's happening.
Yeah. So kind of consistency within all employees and maybe like a yearly training or something where you just refresh everyone on what's appropriate with like the language and dress and stuff, just to keep everyone, to help prevent that problem before it happens, like JT said.
Not only annual training, but have them send out to the company, this is our policy, and have the employees acknowledge, yes, they know what it is. They've been informed. They know where to go, who to talk to. So, yeah, do it annually.
I think that's a great idea. That way, everybody knows that there are help and what kind of, expectation they're under. I know the companies that I've worked for before, they did have the anonymous thing where, if you choose to report it, you can stay anonymous because some situations are kind of awkward. And I think that helps employees to report it more, just because they're not under obligation to tell who you are, and sometimes people don't want to be the bad guy who reports it, and so I think by providing the way to report it, I mean, it has to be of course you can't just report it and not have accountability for it, but at the same time, I mean, even if they knew who it was, they can't go out and publicize it, who reported to so-and-so or, this office. That way, I mean, the person that's reporting is protected as well. I think it has to go both ways. It can't just be one way, when they're reporting and stuff. Because if you don't do it that way, then people are not going to want to report it, I think.
Yeah. So, did anyone read what actually happened, the second part of it? Yeah. Well, I'll read it again just for anyone who didn't, just to kind of help with the conversation. So it says, when Jack called the corporate counsel, he forgot about his caller ID. The lawyer used the information he gave her to figure out the people he was talking about. She contacted the Lonestar EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez had made up her story to protect herself from pending layoffs. DeCoste was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. Julia, Martinez's husband, found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit. French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DeCoste for calling corporate counsel. There was so much animosity between DeCoste and French that DeCoste left the company after 3 months. So that's kind of why I was asking earlier, because he didn't have the evidence to give, and it blew up in his face for trying to do the right thing. It's unfortunate.
I think that's probably one very good reason why we definitely need someone in there that you can talk to in HR or wherever that is going to be able to keep it quiet, so that no one knows it was him that voiced it, and her that accused the other guy. And if they could have been did it without names, I think the outcome could have been different.
I think the outcome could have been different, but I think that this, after you read the case, it was going to end ugly either way. It didn't seem like she was scared and he was kind of apprehensive to begin with, and so, I agree with what you're saying, that's why you want, somebody in HR who, you respect and trust and, can go to, but it didn't seem like it was going to go well either way. But as I read the, how it concluded, I instantly thought, if they just would have done what he knew was right from the beginning, and it followed his gut and reported what he knew, it would have put everybody, including Julia, in a better circumstance in the end, I think. But that's just my opinion on how it could have gone differently.
So in talking more about the policy, because we kind of talked about how it doesn't seem like there was a policy in place for them. So some of the things that we've mentioned, do we think that if that policy that we've talked about creating, if that had been in place, do you think that this could have been prevented?
I'm not sure if it would have prevented all the way, but I think at least some of the things that have happened could have. I don't know if the case would have ended this way. Because I think if she'd known what was the policy, really were too, I don't know if she'd tolerated all, everything like that too. And if she knew there was people that can help her, and then when it started, first thing that she could have reported it, or she could have talk to somebody about it, I think. And I think, I think it would have been, I don't know, it's important that the company itself, too, when they do have services or lawyers like that, that they do protect their information as well. I mean, they went and did the investigation, of course, but I don't know. I don't know if that was the, best thing. I guess they needed to do it, but in a way, I wonder, if there was a certain policies or certain things that they, if they had spelled out, in the beginning how it was going to work or how it was going to be, then it might have been different, just because then, I think herself could have reported it and it would have made things a lot different. And if it was like right at the beginning too, but
I think if both parties, if she knew where to go, if she had a way out or someone to talk to, if he had knowledge that, oh, this is a bad situation, I can do this. If the policy, we're talking about having information ahead of the game. If people know about it, then people can do something about it. So I think that's the big thing about it. Make sure that people know, first of all, it's wrong. Second of all, there's something that can be done about it. And that's what I want to make sure that we have a policy that people know about and that we can do something about it.
I agree with you, Leonard, that uh, if she had known what her rights were the first time anything happened, and there had been someone in the company who she could talk to, it could have stopped there. If the person that she had talked to went and had approached this guy, and there was more of like a policy in place, there might be more repercussions for him, like for what he was doing, if she reported it, that he wouldn't even want to be a part of and would make him stop. So if does anyone else have any other, I don't know, if bullet points or suggestions for like what we want in a policy for this company or for the Doohickey company?
I kind of wonder, is it okay to like put like no tolerance policy type of things, where like you stated, sexual harassment is not tolerated here? I mean, just so everybody kind of knows, and that, if you know something about it, you're supposed to report it, or you're supposed to say something. And so, like, just the expectation that everybody who's working there is expected to do the same thing. But at the same time, I wonder if there's a way to put it that they're not going to put you out in the open saying that so and so said this and reported this on this day, because I think it's important that whoever reports it, their identity is not publicized all the way. I mean, they can know, I think it's okay, they can know like who called in, but not necessarily like publicize it to everybody, like, I don't know how to put it, but if there's a way to do that, I think more people are willing to report it. And if they are expected to say something from the beginning, or that it's not tolerated, then I think it makes things easier.
So what if in our like write-up we put like our company doesn't tolerate sexual harassment, and then that we'd like try and keep their privacy as long as possible, and then if you're like there's a thing called at-will employees, or excuse me, employers, and it's when you sign on to a company, you sign something that says like you acknowledge as the employee that your employer is an at-will employer, and that they can fire you or let you go without write-up, without warning, just like kind of whenever they want to. So you could put that in our policy, like we're an at-will employee, and if you were to be like sexual harassment were to be something that came up, then we would exercise our at-will employer rights in that regard.
I like that one.
And I think that, like, by saying in it, like, we will try and, because I think if you go back to the case, like it said, like, legally, it could go to court, you could have counsel, you could be examined, and if it, like, as long as possible, we will try and respect your privacy. I think that's the thing that most people, like, would be worried about reporting something, is keeping themselves safe in one regard or another. So I think that if we mention that, then it makes people feel safer.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I agree. I was thinking maybe one of our slogans could be "See it, hear it, report it."
Nice.
Sounds good.
I'll put that down. All right, well, I have a pretty good list that I'll try to write up into more of like a paragraph or summary or something for the discussion leader assignment. I don't know if anyone wants to take the lead on the Doohickey thing. I tried to go out onto the Google Doc and I saw Sayuri had written some things, so I went and wrote out a few things on that. I don't know if anyone else has looked at it.
I haven't had a chance to.
Sorry. I know Suzanne has put some things in there. I just wasn't sure where to start, so I just kind of put what I thought, but it's up to everybody to decide what they are. But I think if we can decide what the problem is, and maybe, you know, we each have a section of it or something and come up with a solution, and, you know, by a certain time or certain date that everybody needs to have that written in a Google Doc or something, then maybe we can get the paper going. Because, I mean, we don't want to sit, you know, here and talk like hours, or, you know, if we can, it'll be good, but I know, you know, we can't talk all night. So if we can come up with those points and just get those kind of decided tonight, and then maybe we can divide up into sections, or, you know, even the groups or whatever of 2 or something, and kind of figure out what to do, because I know papers are due on Saturday, so.
Yeah. I think we've got a pretty good start. I liked your outline you put on there of kind of the different issues, and I think that all 3 of the ones you mentioned are ones that we could come up with 4 solutions for. I tried to list out all of the things that I thought the guy that got the job should change. So I think all of those could be possible solutions, and our conclusion paragraph was supposed to state all of the things that we'd want to put into place. So whoever wants to write that could just kind of put all those things together into one. But I think if we do it all on the Google Doc, then everyone can see the progress, and then we should be able to get it done pretty quickly.
Last semester I did, like, I think it's a good point to, like, make sure that we all go through and we all add points to the doc. But last semester I did my whole one of my classes was all one big online group project. But so those are my favorite. But, like, the one thing I learned from it is that we should have a chief editor, because, like, if everybody goes through and edits and adds, like, their sections, I think that's an awesome idea, to everybody have a section, and then have somebody go through and edit, like, who's good at grammar and reading, and then they're the person who submits. Like, I think it always worked well, because we all kind of, like, we had, like, a time, like, it needed to be done at this point, and if your part wasn't done, then the editor knew it, and we would go through and make sure that everything was done to the best of our ability. But it worked really well to just make sure that at least every single time either it was the same person or it was a different person. So I think that would be helpful too if we made sure that we had somebody who edited it right before it was, or a couple hours before it was due, and then submitted it.
I like the idea. I think that sounds really good.
I like the idea too, and I can be the editor if you guys want it, or someone else can. I'm good with anyone doing it, but I could do it.
Is it safe to say that the editor would do the conclusion this time, or would that be a separate, like, calling?
I think so. Normally, the editor would kind of does the beginning, and then everybody else fills in the body, and then it is the introduction, and then the conclusion, and then kind of fills in the gaps and makes it flow. Because as a group, when we each do our own section, it makes it's all kind of choppy, and then the editor makes sure that there's not redundant points in our the flow of our body, and that we make sure that it all flows together, and that it's kind of gels, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So if you want to do it this time, that'd be awesome. And then we can either keep you doing that, or we can change it up next time, because I just looked at it again. It says that we have multiple weeks. So if you want to do it this week, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that.
So when would you like us to all have parts done?
Can you guys have it done by tomorrow night, Friday night, or do you need till Saturday?
I think that's fair if we can do it by tomorrow night, tomorrow, well, just say midnight or something, 11:59, I guess, or something. Then you'll have whole Saturday to be able to go in and work on it. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that works great for me.
So then what points do we have that we can delegate out to everybody?
Okay, so...
If you go to the Google Doc that Suzanne sent out in an email about a week ago, she laid out all the instructions, and people have just kind of been writing in within. So I think the way it breaks down is if everyone writes 3 solutions or a description of one of the issues, I think it kind of breaks down that if everyone does 3 of them, then we'll pretty well be able to knock it out.
Okay.
Let me go back over the document so I can read it again, and I can have something submitted by midnight tomorrow.
Okay, so do we want to decide what 3 problems we are going to talk about? Maybe that will help us, and then we can come up with a solution, or we can discuss about what solution we want, because we do need to have some sources as well. And so if we can, Suzanne is going to be doing, if she's going to be doing editing and either introduction or conclusion, then she shouldn't be doing other work. And so if we divide up, the rest of it among us and kind of each worked on that and have it ready, would that work best?
I think so.
Okay, so
if we just want to pick it out, and if we can just assign names to each of the problems.
Okay, so we need 3 problems, and if I know we have some of them already written. I know Zach has and Suzanne has put some input on it, and I did put some ideas on the bottom as well. So I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but if you can look at them, we kind of discussed some of the problems that company has, or this I guess, case had.
Just looking at it really fast, Suzanne, I think if we took like problem or issue number 1 and then we put it over like the solutions, that would make it easier to read. When editing, does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Because I'm like looking, this is the first time I had looked at this. I don't know why I hadn't seen it before, but like if it just says issue 1, issue 2, and then the solutions to each, then that makes it a little bit confusing. So if we like bolded them and put the solutions under the issue, I think that would help it flow better and make it easier to read.
I agree.
Oh, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the sample doohickey problems in paper. But I think we were supposed to have like introduction, and we're supposed to have like 3 issues talked about, and then we discuss about, I think, the solutions. I have to go back and make sure that was right, but I thought that was how it was laid out.
Okay, well then that's fine too.
Did anybody look at that paper? I gotta go back and look at them. I can't remember exactly.
If we label the issues and label the solutions, it shouldn't be too bad either way, as long as we know which ones are relating to each other. But looking down the document, it looks like we're pretty close to being done. There just needs to be introduction and conclusion, and then just one more solution for issue 2, and then one more solution for issue 1.
So, okay, is it okay if we go over the issues though, so everybody's on same page?
I'll come up with another solution for issue 2. If that is okay with everybody.
Yeah. I think our issues are fine. JT wrote a good paragraph, and Suzanne wrote a good one. If anyone needs help coming up with solutions, I can always give suggestions.
That'll help out. If you want, I can write up the first one and then submit it to.
So is that our plan? Like, I'll just do one for issue, or the last issue for, the last solution for issue 2. And then what else needs to be done? Were you saying, Zach?
It looks like the introduction and the conclusion both need to be finished, and then those 2 solutions. That's all I'm seeing that's missing. So but maybe between you and Leonard, I don't know what you guys have done so far, but if you 2 could split those 2, then Suzanne could edit it, and I think we're there.
Perfect. Then I'll take issue 2, Leonard, if you want to take the other one, and then that would mean that if we got it done by tomorrow, then we could all kind of edit it, or well, okay. Suzanne can, and then if needed, the rest of us can get in.
Okay.
Now, one question I have is that we do need to add some references and some things. We need to do some research in a way, because they said that we have to have some things like that, reference stuff. Like, we need to use some credibility, I don't know, but something.
Yeah, the teacher tonight at his meeting said we need to have about 8 to 10 sources quoted somewhere throughout the thing. And I just looked at it for word count, we're at about 1751, and we need to be at least 3,000.
Okay.
So what if everybody tried to add a reference, or excuse me, yeah, like find one for their their topic. So if Leonard and I each did one with our topics that we're going to do, our solutions, then that would give us 2. And then if everybody else did 1 to 2 as well, then that would give us easily 8 to 10.
Okay. So just so I'm understanding this issue 1, like issue 2 is lack of training, issue 3 is lack of compensation. Is this it's a safety issue, right? Issue 1? Or is it
I know what you're talking about, and I'll just come forward. I didn't know that the bottom ones were connected, so when I went up to the issue 1 and 2, 3 at the top, I was like, well, there's not a 1 yet, or there's not a 2 yet, so I was kind of trying to figure that out, and after the fact, I saw that you had stuff at the bottom, so I had already listed some stuff, and I was just like, okay, well, this is an issue we can talk about. But I still will stick with your issues, and I'll just cut that and then just like redo it the way that it's supposed to be done. But I think that we should have everybody's part like clearly outlined so that we know where we stand.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we could, assign certain issues or solution to each one of us. That way we're more responsible.
So JT, do you want to do issue 1 as lack of safety, or do we want to do lack of diversity there, and you can rewrite the summary of the problem for issue 1?
I could do either one, and I'll just go ahead and do the summary on that. So, I mean, what is it exactly that I'm doing here? That's what I'm asking. So I'm going to do issue 1 has already been written up by Sayuri, so are we just going to do that on lack of diversity? And then how many solutions do we do, or how does that work?
So you do, for each of the 3 issues, we have to write a summary. So if issue 1 was lack of diversity, you would use the article and reference it saying how like 90% or whatever, the managers were all white, and so you'd talk about how that was a problem, and then we have 4 solutions for each of our problems on how we're going to fix that. So like solution 1 for issue 1 would be that we need to have the job postings more well known so that they'd hire from within and not just friends of friends. That kind of thing.
I mean, and you could have. I mean, there's a lot of issues to these problems. You could have them like have to interview at least different classes of. I mean, you could set it. But so, do you want me to go through and do how many solutions have been posted there? I guess is my question, because my computer's not working so great right now. So I would pull it up, but.
So it looks like, I mean, I'm just kind of browsing. It looks like the first 3 issues are already done. They could use some help trying to beef up our word count. So if you want to go in there and just add extra thoughts to each of them, that would help.
Okay. And then I can add a reference probably to each, just about like how, more successful workplaces have. I mean, we did all that reading, so we could reference one of those.
Yep.
How more successful workplaces have like a more diverse culture. I mean, you could do one at least. So I'll do, I guess, 1 source for each of those. That'd be 3 sources. I mean, if that's what you got, if you guys think that that's a good idea. It was more of a question than a, I'm doing this.
Actually, it sounds like a good game plan.
I think the way it breaks down is with like the 3 issues and then the 4 solutions for each of them, and then the intro and conclusion. It breaks down to about 17 different paragraphs of writing. So if Suzanne's kind of the chief editor, and maybe she'll work on the conclusion, that I think that breaks down to about 3 things for each of us. So if everyone can come up with something and three different things and put their name next to it, so that we know where everything stands, we should be good. That's how I would suggest we do it.
I think that sounds like a good idea. So then do we just want to each go through the document and put our names by 3 things that we can find solutions to and then help book up?
I think so.
Okay, then let's do that. And then if Suzanne, if you're going to go through, and I think like the conclusion and the introduction, if we I don't want to say fluff, like I feel like that's not the correct word in regards to like a paper that we're going to get graded on, but like the more fluff we use, it will also add to the paper.
Yep, I can do that.
So then, do we just want to go through tonight, and then we can each just put our names next to 3 things that we can help out with? All right.
I like
Sounds
it.
great. Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, and everybody have stuff handed in by Friday at midnight, and
Yes.
that way I can, and it, earlier if that works, but by midnight for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
That sounds good to me. Thanks for leading, Zach.
No problem. Thanks for being good contributors.
Thank you.
Who wants to lead next week?
I'll do it, just so that I can get it done.
Perfect.
Might have to do it twice.
You're
Oh,
so
goodness.
brave.
I know I get very nervous with like leading groups like this, so yeah, I'll do it just so that I can get over the anxiety quicker, and then I'll wait until later for the second.
Sounds
I
great.
think we're good.
All right, thank you guys. Good
All
night.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. Night.